Today with us, we have Chris, a partner and co-founder of ValueShips. ValueShip is a company expert in transforming companies into more profitable ventures by evaluating and optimizing business models, strategies, pricing, monetization, customer experience, marketing strategies across various industries, such as SaaS companies, software development, companies in e-commerce and marketplaces, professional services, or even traditional B2Bs and private equity companies. So with Chris today, we're going to discuss about pricing data and its critical role in driving effective pricing decisions, which mainly addresses the pricing aspect, but also affects strategies and the business model. So welcome, Chris. It's great to
Hey,
have you
Alex.
with us today.
Great to meet you. Indeed, all what you have said is true. The one important caveat here is that while we are doing many different things, we are wearing different hats. The origin of the company is in pricing, and most, I would say, 80 to 85% of our work is around pricing. So myself, I've been connecting to the pricing world for my whole actually professional life, and ValueShips as well. Mostly pricing is the lever that we are trying to pull in order to increase profitability, sometimes to accelerate growth, etc. So very happy to be here and excited to go on the pricing journey together.
Fantastic. It's great when you have the right people for the right topic.
No pressure, right? So for the audience, we try to deliver our best.
Not at all. I know your work and it's fantastic. So what we want is to share your knowledge with our audience, and also if we can, from our side, accumulate some small things of your vast knowledge on the subject. So our topic is quite big, actually. And before diving into the data part, I think that we firstly need to set the context and start with why we need the data, and start our discussion from the last two words, actually, from our topics, the pricing decisions, so that everything else afterwards can make sense. So why we need the data. So a very generic question for you, Chris. What is a pricing decision? How can we define a pricing decision? Sounds simple, but I think it's a bit more complex.
Actually, it's true, right? Because depending on the context you are currently in, pricing decision will mean something different to the many companies, right? If you are starting, if you're very big at the very beginning of your journey, pricing decisions most likely will be around, how you should price, and maybe a bit earlier, or maybe how much do you charge, but a bit earlier how you should charge, right? So not only how much, but how to charge. What is your core value metric? What is the thing that you are actually charging for? Then moving on, if you are a bit more grown up, or not grown up, but you're a bit later into the journey, the pricing decision should be placed differently in the organization. So it's not only about how much you charge, it's not only how you charge, but also it's about discounting, promotions, if you should deviate from the price that you are you set, etc. And more and more advanced and advanced, the more advanced you are, the more automatic it can be, and the more processes it can have. So behind taking the pricing decision. But for me, conceptually, before moving into the data, pricing decision is any basically pricing, like formal, official pricing discussion that you are having together with your founders, together with your pricing team, analytics team, and you decide to change or leave the model as is, right? Because the easy answer would have been like pricing decision is every time when you decide to change something in pricing. But at the same time, the decision can be we are not changing anything. Right? So we are staying with our current model. We are not increasing the prices. We are not granting a discount to the client. This is also a pricing decision. So those are the decision considering the price tag per se. You also have the decision when it comes to the model. So how will you charge for your products? If you're adding something else to your product, will you charge it on top of your current monetization model, or you will include it to your current monetization model? So I could go on and on with what type of pricing decisions we are having in the company, but I would say that this pricing decision is every time where you decide to act or not to act on your price tag, your monetization model, your discount scheme, which is a price tag also as well, and new product pricing / new product monetization.
So if I could put it in one sentence,
That would be hard.
I know. I'm going to just try as simple as I can. Is actually the willingness to act or not act upon a change.
Yes,
And-
I would say
and
that.
this ties a bit.
No, I think it actually summarizes it quite well. So it's exactly what you have said, but frequently we mislead pricing only with the price tag, so only with a number. So it's not only the number, it's not only the money that you are charging, but also it's about how you are charging, when you are charging, when you are deviating from the price tag, etc. So I would say that very good summary. I wouldn't bet that it's feasible, but apparently we should put that this definition maybe on Wikipedia.
I like that. Let's both take the credit for that. So the way you described the whole pricing decision sounds to me like it's a process, actually,
Mhm.
and not a random process. It looks like a structured process. If you agree with that, what would a process like this look like?
So here's the thing. Once, a year ago, I was holding a presentation for one of my clients about, it was a bit of introduction to the pricing, a bit of inspiration, a bit of a power talk, something like that with regards to profit and price. And I remember that the title of this presentation was, "What is the good price?" So what is a good price, basically? What is a good number for some particular product? And then, preparing for this presentation, I went super philosophically and I was starting to ask my question, is something like a good optimal price tag, does it that even exist, as a concept? So do we have a concept of optimal price? And then I've realized that not only we don't, but also the question that I was asking myself at that moment in my professional career, what is a good price, was not a good question, because something like good price, it really doesn't exist. Like, it just exists in a given particular moment in time, and then it's gone. And let me go a bit more into the details here. Why is that? Because pricing is a process, basically. And how you price, how you decide on your current monetization model, this is a process. Imagine, very simple, right? Imagine that, for example, an automatic desk, right? The desk, you press, it goes up, then you press, it goes down, etc. Right? If you go to, I don't know, any store like this famous Swedish store, for example, e-commerce, you see that 2020. I'm just guessing. I've actually checked it for the presentation. I can be a bit off when it comes to exact numbers, but 2020, this desk was around like 150 euros. Then the COVID hit, and everyone was working, or most of the people were working from home, which means that this desk went up to 250. Then it was 2023. Most of the people already had, or most, maybe not most, but some of the people already had this desk. It was not that hot at that given point of time. So it went back to 200. Then it was again 250. So asking yourself a question, if there is a good price for this desk, no, it isn't, right? There is a good price at the given moment for the given situation. So in order to be successful in pricing, you need to structure a process around it. And then, you can ask yourself, what processes do you have in your company, right? You do have a marketing process. Everyone talks about the marketing processes. You start with lead, then, it's a prospect, then you have a first conversation, second conversation, blah, blah, blah. There is a process behind it, right? There is a sales process, marketing and sales process I've just mentioned. There's like R&D process, procurement processes. You receive the offer, you send it to procurement, then procurement looks at it. Oh, it's too expensive, comes back, blah, blah, blah. There is a structured process around it. The problem is that even if you look into the data when it comes to number of FTEs in Europe, in US, how many FTEs you have dedicated to pricing and pricing processes versus marketing, sales, procurement, etc., other processes in the company, unfortunately, pricing is lagging. I do have this like very, very particular data per country. Happy to share it at some point of time, but the bottom line here is that, the pricing process is lagging, and number of FTEs working on pricing is much lower than within the other processes. So no good price, there needs to be a process structured in order to benefit from price in terms of profit. So coming back to your question, yes, I do agree that pricing is a process. Is it structured? Well, maybe the question should be like, is it better if it's structured? Yes, of course, it's better than it's structured. But also, I'm trying to be a realist right now. Looking on how many pricing professionals we have, what is the level of understanding of pricing as a science in general in the market. I'm not complaining, right? Just the facts that I was checking through LinkedIn. I'm happy, to outline what should be the ideal process. But then, of course, like it will never happen, right? If we want to be perfect, and rarely we really start the journey. So I'm trying to follow, this very simple principle, starting with your pricing journey, that done is basically better than perfect. And Kahneman, behavioral economics, any process is better than lack of the process. So if you're a small company, I would say that having an educated discussion or on how you should set the price and what your model should look like at the very beginning of your journey, this is at least the beginning of the process. And then if you're very early on the yearly basis, having a discussion if you should increase the price, if you should change to your currently existing users and new users is the minimum for the process. Then moving on, what you should definitely add, in case you're adding any feature, any product, any other service to your offering, then you should have a discussion, okay, how I should price it. It shouldn't be obvious that, the new feature for your product is just, a part of your solution, right? Look at iPhone, right? If like in digital world, we are adding feature to our SaaS solutions just because we are working on the product and they are typically included in the current offering. Like in iPhone, you get the new feature every September. It's a new iPhone with a new price, right? So that's number two. Thinking in terms of new products, new offerings, new services. This is a very important part of the process. Then moving on, if you are more advanced, something that should be part of the process is also discount management. So we frequently don't see how big of a margin challenge is our discounting scheme. I can give you a very simple example for your products. Create a matrix, and on one axis, look at the percentage discount. On the other axis, look at the total deal value. If what you if the things that you see in front of you looks like a triangle, most likely the discounting is not a big challenge for you. But if it looks like a sky full of stars, most likely you don't apply these least the very basic volume discounting scheme, right? So the third part of the process would have been looking at your discounting scheme, and here being a bit more concrete. I think that once you achieve like the pricing that you feel comfortable with, most likely every quarter you should have a discounting discussion. So that's the third part of the process. At this time, most likely dedicating at least half of the FTE, maybe someone from your analytics team, maybe someone from your data team, maybe someone from your business team, maybe someone from sales or marketing team, dedicating at least half of FTE towards the pricing processes. This is a good time, I think, to do it. Then, the fourth, and there are like multiple, level of advancements. But then I would say that the last thing that I will mention here is you need to start to get the process on the, to structure the process on the daily basis, right? Because so far we had what? A yearly discussion around your pricing, new pricing development, when you are adding something to your products, something to your services, and then discount scheme every quarter. But then once you get bigger, this should be a part of your weekly, bi-weekly discussions. And then you should start adding tools towards it. Of course, the faster you have tools that will help you with your pricing decision, the pricing process, the better it is for you, because the less time you'll spend on it and the better educated the decisions you will get. And nevertheless, thinking about the process, I would say that those would have been my 4 steps at the very beginning for the companies that are maybe starting or are very early on in the journey.
So it's like the core of pricing actually you're describing, which can obviously be more drilled down the more a company is advancing in pricing and digging even deeper
Yes,
in this
yes,
knowledge.
for sure, right? Because I have seen like the gigantic companies, world-class leaders that were having, 20 people under the pricing department. There was like VP of pricing, or it was sitting under a CFO, etc. So then the process is dynamic and takes place on the yearly basis. The more products you have, the more complex it become, and the more time it takes for you. The more sales you have, and the more pricing decisions you have on the daily basis, the more complex it's become, right? Because imagine, right, you have one sales, like you're starting, you have one salesperson. Of course, you can take the pricing decisions yourself. Then you have 5 salespeople, and every day they're taking like 4 to 5 pricing decisions while talking to their clients, etc. Then you have 50 sales, and they have each of the salesperson have, I don't know, 100 clients. Then you have like hundreds, if not thousands, of pricing. Actually, in this example, it would have been thousands of pricing decisions to take every day, right? And you can't do, and what is frequently a challenge within the companies that I see is that they're missing this point where, it's not longer, all information is not longer in your head, right? You think that you have everything in the control because, there was like every day I have around one discounting discussion, right? With my clients. It's all fine, one discussion, one discount granted, it's okay. But then you've been running your business for 10 years. You had every day you had one pricing decision, one pricing discussion. Roughly, it's 2,000 discounted clients in the lifetime of your business, right? Which is a major portion of the revenue or margin that you can seal through the pricing decision, right? So, the earlier you start with the process, the less problems you will have in the future, because of course discount ceiling, while this is frequently a first step in price optimization, it's not an easy process, right? It requires a lot of hard discussion with your clients, a lot of stress. So I would say, make yourself a favor and start treating it as a process rather than one-time decision.
Also, when you're talking about salespeople and their clients, I was imagining an e-commerce platform. You have the products and millions of customers whom you never see, and every day, more than one times per day, you need to check on the prices because, in my perspective, the pricing of each product is a proposal towards the end customer. I propose you this product for this amount of money that has this value possible to you, and having to manage thousands of products on daily basis. I don't think it's something that can be done actually manually.
No, not at all, right?
Or
Of
by
course,
one
in
person.
most of the cases, it is done manually, to be very honest with you. Sometimes looking at the technology, working with my clients, like, multiple Excels, it needs to be updated to your pricing, to your solution. Then it takes one day to, get live, etc. Then there is checking, blah, 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 stuff like this. So technology is frequently might be suboptimal. In this case, the process of pricing when it comes to e-commerce. So like my specialization is digital products, which is like software as a service, SaaS, e-commerce, and custom software development, and some of the classical business. I've seen different companies, hence it's quite broad, but this is where I do have quite of an experience, travel, also commission models, etc. Nevertheless, when it comes to e-commerce, and if you want to be specific in the pricing process here, first, there are a couple of angles here, right? So first is how challenging or how many attributes are you taking into consideration while setting the price to the e-commerce, right? So typically it's just cost. You take COGS, you take 30% margin on top of it, and that's it. Big mistake, right? If you think about this, do you know the price of water? Most likely you do, right? Do you know the price of mustard? If it's like 10% more expensive, 20% more expensive, you'll buy it. Do you know the price of 1 liter of soy sauce? No idea, right? So if you are setting your prices only based on the costs, this is the point that you're missing, right? You're missing the price sensitivity of your customers. Of course, having zero process than having a cost plus process, fantastic. You are still better, like you went from 0 to 1, but then still a lot of margin is left on the table. So what I would say within the e-commerce and the advancement of e-commerce is that you need to take more and more data into consideration to profit from your business. How I would approach it, and also, put it into some.
And this, Chris, sorry for interrupting, is making a process absolutely necessary. The more data,
100%.
the more angles that you have to take into account to reach an optimal price for each product, you cannot do it without a process, as we started discussing at the beginning of my question.
Right? This, in the model that I was outlining at the very beginning of our discussion, the change here is that you need to take the pricing decision because you are setting the price every day, right? In SaaS products, you are setting the price once for X amount of time, and you stick to it till next price increase, decrease, change. Right? In e-commerce, you need to set it every day, basically, right? So in order to, of course, be
competitive,
to be efficient, right? So the thing here is that with e-commerce, how I am trying to understand and support my clients with e-commerce, we're just taking more and more data while taking the pricing decisions, right? And the first type of data, you can see how many views you have on your website versus the revenue that you are making. The products with a lot of views, zero sales, most likely too expensive, right? The products with a lot of views, a lot of sales, most likely price well. The products with less views, but also big revenue or volume, basically, most likely too cheap, right? So you're you start building the process, taking additional layer of data to take the pricing decision. Okay, this product, not many views, a lot of volume, most likely conversion there is good, revenue per visit is high. Let's increase this price. Let's see what happens. Number one, right? You stick with the conversion that you have had. Okay, let's increase it one more time. Again, process. Right? Then it works. You add additional layer of the data. For example, your warehouse. So you do have warehouse. You see that if the product or if the product sales will continue as it is, your products from your warehouse will be gone in 2 months, and then the shipment is coming in 3 months, whatever. Or 1 day versus 3 days. Maybe this is more close to the reality. And then you see, so actually I can make more money from those products, and then I will just sell it in 3 days, and then the shipment will come. Right? So again, house shipment data. Competition, super important, right? If you are selling water or commodity products or your core key VIs, right? Key value items, and you have them. So those products that are the most price sensitive. In my previous example, water, right? Very price sensitive product. Of course, competition will be super important here, right? Because you need to be cheaper for your competitors in order to make the sell. What else? Additional layer of data, cross-sell. If this is a super price sensitive product, so people are actually, and you are well known from this product, so people want to buy this product from you. But if you are more expensive than your competition, you won't close the sale. But you see in your data that this product upsell additional products. This is a necessity to be cheaper than your competitors. So thinking in terms of e-commerce, you're absolutely right. And the more SKUs you have, more SKUs you have, the more the more you need the process behind it. In my thinking here is that you start with cost, you then add one additional layer of data to take at one time, and you start testing if it works or it doesn't work. And this is like the pricing process on the price setting side. Of course, in the backbone, at the backbone, you need to have a tool that will allow you to make those changes. Number one. Number two, you need to have a performance management system that will tell you if you were successful and this price change or not, right? So you are not changing prices.
You need to measure your results every time.
Yes. You need to measure. One of my experiences here is that you need to measure, but the measurement system is a bit might be a bit complex. So you need to make sure that you are comparing apples to apples. So what we are, for example, doing when measuring if the price test was positive or negative or just neutral to our business, we're checking, of course, month over month and year over year margin. of this product. And we are also looking at the whole category. So if you're, I don't know, working in perfumes, the whole beauty, basically performance, right? Just to make sure that seasonality we have year over year. And so this is excluded, but just to measure that, something didn't happen on the market, etc. And we also are looking at Google views, right? To see how many searches there were at this given product, just to make sure that you, for example, change something with your pricing, then your margin went, I don't know, 20, 30% up, but then actually it was not due to pricing, but something else. So a false positive is also your enemy here.
So it's almost actually a PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, and act. I plan what to do. I do with the data that I'm getting. I check the results. It's an important step of the process, looking what you have done, and then act, like adjust actually if this is working for you or not, or
Create
if you need to add more layers, or rebuild the process, obviously.
To build the process out of it, because of course, Alex, it's like I've seen it in my previous consulting experience. I've seen it in my clients, right? You can do this process from scratch that will be ideal. It's going to take 25, 35 weeks. It will cost you a lot of money, etc. So you can come prepare. You can come and make this process, perfect before testing it. But this is not what I would. And of course, there can be amazing results, right? It's just not how we are doing this. And I'm not sure if, as long as you are not a gigantic business that can, afford such a big preparation, I would rather start creating the process on the fly that is data driven. There is a process behind the process, right? So there is a process to the process, basically, and you start with the parts of the portfolio that are the least important for you. So the first analysis, and also happy, to give something tangible to the audience. Very happy to share that from our perspective, revenue concentration analysis can be a starting point at every pricing optimization in e-commerce. So you know where to start. Revenue concentration, very simple analysis. You just need to put all your products revenue from the biggest revenue to the smallest revenue. Then on the other axis, what percent portion of the revenue these products are responsible for. And you can see that, for example, 10% of your revenue is 10% of your products are responsible, 50% of revenue, 20 of 80, Pareto, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's not like this. Of course, 80-20 is like very super famous, but business to business, super, super, super different. If you're more commodity, it's going to be more linear. If you have more complex offerings, it should be more concentrated, blah, 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 stuff like this. This is not the key. Key here is where you start your testing, right? The thing that you have said. And for us, since the first test is based only on the limited part of data, you start with the products that are the least important. So 5% of your products that are responsible for 0.1% of your revenue, or like 1% of your revenue, you name it, right? But the ones that are in the long tail, so you can assess this test, see what works, see what doesn't, and then next test, more data, products that are a bit more important to your business.
That's safe, actually. That's from the safe side, actually.
Yes, of course, right? Because
You don't
then
damage
we
your
know
business.
e-commerce very frequently low margins. We need to buy the products if we are not producers. From the producer, we need to make sure that our stocks are okay. We have the whole company to manage. So I would say that to be on the safe side, I would start with those that are the least important. Of course, for the sake of test, you can add 3, 4, 5 products that are a bit more important to the test, just to observe how they act. Nevertheless, for me, I would start with the least important. One additional also tip to the audience: make sure to make the pricing test logical. So, for example, if for some reason, I don't know, you're selling some liquid, right? And there you have one half a liter package and 1.5 liter package. Make yourself a favor to check if you're not testing only one package, because if for some reason, I don't know, half of the liter will be more expensive than 1.5 liters, you will make yourself, you will harm yourself, right? So make sure that it's all logical. These things are called pricing guardrails. And this is the name that I know, or pricing rules, right? So pricing rule is the basic truth, right? So I don't know, bigger size in terms of the liquid, for example, can't be bigger size, can't be less expensive than a smaller size. If you're selling furnitures, what I have seen on my studies, for example, that if you have a couch and you have this L couch, the one where you
Yes.
can straighten your
The
legs.
corner one.
Yes, the corner ones, right? You have left ones and right ones, depending how your room is, right? So this is another, right? They shouldn't be priced differently, despite the fact that from the data you could learn that they should, right? But then that it's a basic truth, right? That the client wouldn't really accept it. So within this process, especially in B2C, especially not even in B2C, especially in the e-commerce space, because the same applies typically to B2B, a bit more complex on the kickback rebates front when it comes to the process. But the end of your process always, before optimizing your price, before press yes, is a pricing rule / pricing guardrails to double check if you are not doing something that is
Doesn't make
against your
sense.
clients, basically, right? Doesn't make sense.
I think that you made more than comprehended how important and vital a process is into taking correct pricing decisions and obviously benefiting your company. You mentioned before the pricing departments in general have a lower number of FTEs. And since you mentioned FTEs, I want to come to the people, and we describe the process. But who are the people actually that make the decision within the company? Is it the accountant? Is it the marketing guy? Is it the purchasing guy?
So pricing like in general, starting again, sorry for that, but from a bit philosophical angle, right? The pricing is like if you're not having a process, people behind pricing, it's a very long term suffer that you'll be suffering long term, but you will see the effects also in the long term, right? If you don't have sales, I mean, you see it immediately. We don't have sale, we have problem, right? But pricing is a bit different, right? So it is important, it's vital, but the effects of suboptimal pricing or pricing structure you will see in the typically, not always, in the long term. That's why not only pricing departments are smaller in terms of people, but frequently those departments don't really exist. Right? And to be very, 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 very honest with you, I have seen hundreds of millions business that didn't have a pricing, and that's fine. It can also be okay as long as the process sits somewhere. Who are the people? So that really depends. If you are in e-commerce space, frequently the first person actually to see the problem is the finance department. So sales are going okay, costs are well managed, optimized, and we are still not as profitable as the benchmarks are saying, or we would like to be. A problem. So we have profit equals price times volume minus cost. Okay, so volume is okay, costs are okay. Where is the problem? Price is the problem, right? So frequently sits under the financial roles, simply because those roles also typically have an analytics department, data department under the responsibilities. That is why this is one place where you could find the pricing department. Then the decision making, of course, there in some companies you have portfolio managers, portfolio managers, basically, who are responsible for some parts of your portfolio. I don't know, you're a fashion company, boots, for example, then t-shirts, etc. Right? You have the pricing decisions frequently sit there. Problem is that they're frequently not fueled with the data from the finance department, hence they're making the decisions based on the gut feeling, which is a problem again, right? The long-term problem that you will face, right? So that's number two. Number three, sometimes you have also sales departments. So this is where it also sometimes sits. The problem also, and my preference would have been that there is at least half of a pricing FTE that is, of course, if you're like super small at the very beginning in analytics, then it's a quarter of FTE, half of the FTE, etc. But if you want to put a pricing decision, pricing analytics somewhere, you need to make sure that this person is well established and has enough power in the organization, because this person will be against of the decisions of many people, right, in the company. To be more precise, we want to make a promotion, right? We want to give the discounts because there is, I don't know, winter is coming or autumn is coming, you name it, right? People like in our business the discounting. And then the pricing person comes to you saying, is telling the marketing department and portfolio manager, guys, but our margin, our costs are 60%, right? Our price is, I don't know, $1,000 for this item. And typically we sell 1,000 items like this. What is the promotion that you want to make? And they're like, 15%. Okay. If you do the math, you will see that if you are making on 1,000 euros USD sell on COGS 60% with the volume of 1,000, you need to break even the same profitability, you need to at least sell 600 products more or less. 15% discount with cost of goods sold 60%, $1,000, 1,000 volume. I mean, you can do the math, but it's around six.
But assuming that the product is price elastic enough to be affected by the price change.
Of course, but look at just from the process and FTE perspective. No, you have a pricing process person, and this person tells you, okay, but are you sure that you will sell 600 more of those products, because 601 is additional profit for us, 599 is a loss from this, from, of course, cross-sell, upsell, simplifying, right? But to simplify a bit. So what I'm saying, right? I'm saying that if you want to have a pricing person, a pricing department, this department will be, many people in the company might feel uncomfortable with this department, that they need to learn how to work with the department, because this department will have to disagree to many things typically, especially when it comes to discounting, value, rather than fighting with a price, fighting with a value, etc. And it's great, it's great to have a discussion, it's great to have exchange thoughts in your organization, etc. So thinking about the process and the person who should be responsible there, I would say that there is no silver bullet here. It really depends on the organization. Sometimes finance, sometimes product, sometimes sales. The key here, which is the much more important here, is that this person has access to the data and has a voice, has a say in the organization. Second thing, if most of the e-commerce companies, funny that I'm working with, and I think in general, most of the e-commerce companies, I have zero data to support it, gut feeling. But let me put this hypothesis. They have both B2C and B2B angle, right? So even as a small fraction, and there is always a clash.
A conflict, yeah.
Right? The conflict, which is natural. I mean, it's super easy to imagine why is this conflict. But also pricing person comes in handy here. If you don't have a pricing person there, what we are doing and how we are, what I would advise is to split your portfolio, and those are the key people for B2B, those are the key people for B2C, and they determine the price for both worlds. Of course, through the discussion, but they have the final say, right? And of course, it comes down to where you can make more revenue, etc. And nevertheless, yeah, this is trying to answer your question. No, short answer, long short question, long answer. It depends. Most important, that those people have a say.
You explained very, very thoroughly, because having a voice actually is critical in my experience. I mean, you might have all the data in the world. What you're proposing, what you're saying, what you're suggesting is always being negated by somebody that has more, let's say, authority than you have as a pricing guy. It makes it impossible to implement anything. Obviously, vice versa. It's the gut feeling that everybody knows that has been happening for the past centuries. And now we're trying to just change that and having more educated guesses on what the price, because it's always a guess eventually if somebody's going to purchase or not. You're guessing they want your proposal and spend money on that.
Yes, one thing here also, one thing when it comes to have a voice, also, maybe against my community, of course not against, but I also frequently falling in this trap. It's okay also to have a pricing decision and just have an educated decision that you are okay if you lose margin on this because there are some other things that are important. I don't know. If you want to promote your brand, you want to get more people into the newsletter because in the long term, it will be important. So also pricing people sometimes tend to be, okay, no profit, no go, right? Okay. Sometimes yes. Sometimes, it's also as a pricing professional, it's good to have your eyes open for the wider business context, right? So I think we don't have a lot of pricing professionals in general, but if I can have a say, of course, my opinion, I don't feel entitled to decide. But for me, what I have seen on the market from great is that as a pricing person, not only you are good with pricing and you know how to calculate, the science behind it, but you also can accept the bigger business context, and you can have good arguments for or against those business contexts. So yeah, just a caveat.
I'm happy you mentioned that because this leads me to my next question, which what are the key factors actually, and based obviously on what we have just discussed, that influences the pricing decisions? So your last sentence makes it clear that you start with the strategy. It might be I want to have a gain market share strategy. I want to have a loss leader strategy. It depends, I think, on the vision of the company or what do I stand for? Why am I here? What I try to achieve? And following that, all the process that we just discussed thoroughly, all the people that we discussed that are going to support this process, don't they all fall under the vision of the company, the strategy of the company, the ultimate target of the company? It might be a 1 month target, might be a vision of a 10-year strategy.
Crystal, here, the point is like long-term KPIs and the vision of the company. Of course, at some point, every company wants to be profitable, right? You can be not profitable for 15 years that we see already from the market and still be successful, right? In e-commerce, a bit harder to be to be very honest, but still you can see examples like this, market capture, for example. Two things here, right? The first you have short-term strategy, like the first you have long-term strategy, and then you have short-term tactics, for example, or also short-term strategies. So definitely we frequently call it the pricing is a horizontal function, right? Horizontal means that, it touches many different decisions in the company, right? Branding, marketing, promotion, sales, B2B, B2C, portfolio, what to add, so for example, what products you should add to your portfolio. Also very important pricing decision, right? Should you scale the cheaper assortment or more expensive, more premium assortment? Also a pricing decision. A surprise, but this is how it works. So I fully agree that pricing is definitely part of a long-term strategy, right? So if you want to be a premium brand, if you want to have the higher, and it comes down to price selection convenience, right? So within e-commerce space that we deep dive into right now is that typically the best store, the best marketplaces, e-commerce is Amazon principles, etc. They have the best price, they have best selection, and the higher convenience, right? When you're a smaller e-commerce shop or smaller e-commerce full stop, you should at least strategy-wise focused on one of these KPIs, right? So either you have the best portfolio, so the whole basket can be actually filled through your e-commerce, or they are always the cheapest option at your site, or you have the best convenience. So, next day delivery, or, like if people want to return something, they have 30 days and don't really make any problems with that, blah, 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 stuff like this. And, in each of this segment, pricing is a decision, right? You need to take a pricing decision, even with the convenience, right? If you want to be the more convenient, you charge premium for that. So, trying to put this in the bigger picture, zooming out a bit, yes, a pricing should be part of the bigger strategy, and you should always have a pricing decision will always either lead or follow. That depends, but your bigger picture.
What you just mentioned reminds me of a saying that I've read quite some time now that says, be either the best at something or the cheapest. Never get caught in the middle. And I really like that saying, and it makes absolute sense with what you just described. I'm a small player in the market. no matter what market or industry, no matter my size in the market. But if I am the best at something, the long-term strategy of the company, I remember it was which pizza that says, I deliver within 30 minutes, period. That's my USP. I am the best at that. I'm not saying that I'm having the best pizza, the most, let's say, sorry, I forgot the word, the more ingredients that you can select from or so on. I'm the fastest one. End of story. Not the cheapest.
Mhm. And this is, you come back to this general basic principles, right? And I think also, I don't remember what one of the marketplaces, right? That there are some general principles and everything will follow, right? If you're always the fastest, there will be an audience for the fastest pizza, right? And if you're always there, this is one KPI that you should optimize for. Of course, over the course of time, you should see if your hypothesis is true, right? Because maybe despite being the fastest, your costs are not in place or you're not charging premium enough to justify such a fast delivery, right? Because if you want to deliver it within 15 minutes, it means that you don't have one chef but three, like Pizzaiolo, right? It means that you don't have one provider or one car, but you need to have 5 cars, etc. This all are costs, so you need to justify those costs with the price, not costs, but you need to make sure that you're profitable. But yeah, this comes back to the strategy and general principles, right? If you're the cheapest, you'll make the sale. If you're the fastest, there will be audience for being the fastest. If you have the most premium product, there are people wealthy enough who can buy your premium product. It's basically, it's also, a bit of a philosophy, but I think very well needed in the discussion. Sometimes we are actually written not an article, but I gave a comment lately to Monday.com on this analysis paralysis, right? So we are living in the world full of data where analysis are on your fingertip. Basically, if you don't know what to analyze, you go to ChatGPT basically and ask ChatGPT what analysis is valid here, and then you execute this analysis. The problem is that sometimes we are in this analysis paralysis situation because there is so much data and we want to really analyze it and we want to make sure that our decisions are the best. And we're stuck, right? And we frequently, my opinion again, right? But my opinion is that frequently we are stuck in some very basic things, right? So, hey, you don't need to analyze everything and everywhere to understand that if you have the best portfolio, the fastest delivery, and you are the cheapest, you will make a success, right? This is just a basic story, basically. And of course, simplifying again a bit. But my point here is that there are some basic business principles, basic business rules that will hold true most likely, right? But no matter how many analysis you will do. It's like, look at my business, right? And for example, I'm working at the consulting business. It's a very factual. The more podcast I will make, the more knowledge I will share, the more audience I will have. And of course, I can do like, multi-level marketing tracking of my activities, seeing how many leads do I have, what podcast to choose, whom to talk to again. But the truth is, the more I will do it, the more known I will become, the more business I will have, right? Same story with the e-commerce, right? So happy that you brought this point, zooming out from pricing a bit, that, these basic principles are frequently overwhelmed with, all the analysis that are available there.
It's like saying no data or too many data are equally problem.
Yes, might be. Of course, there is a caveat here. I've seen, multi-billion companies that had tons of data and they were using it like in a very structured and manner and very good manner. What I'm saying is that, there's always, there's no one size fits them all, right? If you're smaller, use smaller sort of data. You're growing, make sure that you're not only growing in terms of your revenue, but also in your data capabilities, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, using sometimes like what you're saying, too much data, for example, like if you have just normal car, but you are using like, hardcore F1 tires, I mean, you're gonna fail anyway because they are not adjusted to your car, right? Again, if you're having a normal car, but your tires are, no good enough after 10 years, I mean, it's also a situation where you don't have data, right? So, there is a suit for every size, basically.
Find the middle ground actually for each case.
It's
In
a tool.
general, if we wanted to summarize the key factors that influence the pricing strategy, I have written down 4 of them. Actually, we start with strategy that sets the vision and the destination. We have the process, which make things work. We have the people that will actually gonna work the process and make things happen, and eventually have the right amount of data. So in order to feed your machine slash process with what it's required in order to have the outcome that you have dreamed of in your strategy.
Yes, fully. We could put it in the framework and write a book around it. Just kidding,
Definitely.
but yeah, I think so. I think so. To wondering, within the process, maybe not what I'm missing, but what is worth to be named is, performance management, right? And maybe it can be underlying thing that no matter. And I know performance management is behind the process. It is behind the process. There's an underlying thing, right? You need to manage your performance to make sure that your strategy, your people, your processes are heading into the right direction.
And they're all aligned, obviously. So in general, when you're coming to the point that you have to make a pricing decision, act in some way or do nothing. What, in your experience, distinguishes an effective decision from an ineffective one? What's the
So
key difference here?
effective versus ineffective. Of course, at the end, the lagging indicator is the profit at the end that you are making from taking this decision, right? So this is like ultimately, that you will learn and you will see your actions by the effects, right? That you are achieving. But this is the ultimate, I think, typically pricing
And a bit
wise.
too late sometimes.
Yes, but unfortunately, takes a bit too much time to understand if the decision was great. So I think a couple of things here. So right amount of data at the right amount of time also. Take the decision. Your pricing decision, that definitely needs to be at the timely manner because the truth for today will not be most likely in e-commerce cycle. It's like a weekly, for example, or bi-weekly decisions, right? I'm not like, of course, that there are like the decisions that are dynamic, but meaning a pricing decision, not just changing one price tag, but a big pricing decision. The things won't be so. If to do like this big promotion because we see that the sales are going very well, and if we decrease the price even more, I mean, we will have like a super success. For example, rarely happens, but let's take it as an example. So if you see that the momentum right now, most likely taking decision too late will be a loss of opportunities. Timing is a key here that know your timing. Sometimes you need to be agile and you need to be fast. So what does it mean? That you need to take the decision based on the limited amount of data and take the good decision. Not all the situations are super pleasant and convenient. Sometimes you just see two things and you need to act today, and you just act, right? This is so time is one thing. The other thing, to being capable of taking the decision based on the limited understanding on the situation. Of course, much better if you have full understanding, blah blah blah. Of course, this is again basic principle. It's better to take the decision based on big data than like smaller data. But sometimes it's just a must. So timing is one. The capability of taking decision is second. And for me, sometimes frequently done is better than perfect. So for me, remember that there's always a control Z in pricing. And we frequently think that there is this common saying that suboptimal pricing, wrong pricing can destroy your business. Yes, of course it can, but it can if you're going to sustain it for long, right? So it's not always, and we frequently treat pricing because in many cases we just don't understand it. That's why we treat it as like fear of unknown, but we are afraid to do something. So my point here is just to have this discussion and take this decision no matter what decision that is. And I'm not sure if we can really, in the current capability. So of course I can make it up, timing, process, etc. But to be very honest, in the business we are currently at this phase where there is not enough pricing decisions taken, right? Because there are not enough discussions. So I'm not sure if we can differentiate from okay then versus not okay. It's good that it's all if it's already if it's happening at all.
True, and I understand it needs to have though a bare minimum. Like let's say, for example, that Black Friday is approaching, so
Mhm.
I cannot be expected to do something after Black Friday has passed, obviously. So that's one thing. Okay, it's an extreme example.
Because I see my clients preparing for Friday starting from March, right? So of course, it's not a must starting in March. You can start later, but I see companies actually, starting preparing. Sometimes they say that they already start to prepare, late October, December, like they look up Friday, and they start preparing. The others in March, the others in late Q2, early Q3, but definitely 1 month before Black Friday is already too late.
And depends on the business, obviously. For example, mixed
Course.
electrical e-commerce business, you cannot plan 1 year before. But
Sure thing.
the same, for example, stands for fashion. When the season changes, well, you need to be prepared for your new lineup, your new stock, your new prices, what to do with the unsold stock, do your discounts, and so on. So,
Mhm.
I mean, timing, no matter how it's derived, if winter sales or Black Friday or something else or New Year's Eve, is of utmost importance. So your experience says that I must do something. And obviously, since we're not living in an ideal world, but I'm going to have all my data perfectly aligned before me with all the calculations being made and everything taken into consideration, I need to have also the guts, to say it plainly, to make a decision, even with a smaller amount. But obviously, I guess you're suggesting measure it afterwards to
Mhm.
see what I need to correct, because always we need to correct something and not let something prolong if it has been maybe a wrong decision. So
Yes, but taking this caveat into decision with our definition at the very beginning, the sometimes decision is also not to act, right? So the lost opportunity if you didn't decide to do anything with your pricing. I mean, you can also make the analysis what could have happened if I would have taken this decision
an
fully.
alternative cost analysis, actually.
Yes, exactly. Fully with you on that.
But you need to act, as you mentioned. I mean, what struck me is that you mentioned you see that people don't take enough pricing decisions,
Mhm.
even if they're wrong. I mean, if you don't test something out in the market, you're wrong. Like Edison found 1,000 ways how not to light a bulb.
Yes, of course. Here I'm also, and here the concentration curve that we were discussing helps a lot, right? So of course,
Mhm.
I wouldn't encourage anyone to, act drastically on 10% of the most selling portfolio, right? This test will come, but it needs to come in waves, right? And the first way, I'm fully agree. It's better to act and to do something, and even to change it and fail. Just make sure that you are doing it in the playground basically, and your playground, the more you know, the more advanced you can become, the more important, and the more important products should be part of your actions, right? But then if you want to test, etc., just start with something that can damage control basically, right? So this is and you can also succeed, right? It's not like you'll be failing all the time. So for us, to give you an example, fail test also gives us plenty of information, because we know that if we, for example, decrease the price in this portfolio, despite the views, the competition, etc., we will not be able to do the same margins as we were doing before price decrease. Fantastic information. Of course, this month for this product, we earn less, but then we know what is the floor for this price, and we shouldn't decrease it beyond it. Then competition doesn't know it, for example, they will do it, you keep your price, and you're gonna win next time from not doing this basically. So here I think there is no disagreement between two of us. I'm also thinking that you should definitely act. The thing is that you need to make sure that it's a structured process where you start with something that is like you start your pricing. It's a baby steps basically, right? So you start your pricing journey with something easier, something more simple, something that is less important in terms of our revenue, and gradually, it doesn't mean it needs to take years or so, right? It can take, like I said, right, 6 months till you reach the proficiency to start acting of your most best sales.
Since you talked about time, how often do you think all these pricing decisions should be performed, reviewed, changed, and so on?
So for me, it's again the best. It's automatic, of course, right? So for at least 50% of long tail products, typically automatic decisions up to the guardrail, which is, for example, 20% change. This should be automatic, right? Then pricing this. Then if they are automatic for next 40% of the products, that should be semi-automatic, right? So you need to accept those decisions, but the recommendations comes to you automatic. Then when it comes to your key the product, that depends. Depends how heavy in terms of the revenue, how heavy, how important, how
Their effect
important.
is.
Yes, they are. So that would be the ideal picture, that you have some reinforcement model that automatically adjusts the prices of your products, etc. Then and this is like this very down to earth process. The more high level process, so things that we were also discussing during our conversations. I mean, at least when you are talking to the profitability on your board, this is where the discussion at least should happen, right? So if we should take some pricing actions, some pricing decisions, but not on the product level, but on the company strategic level,
Mhm.
right? So we want to become more competitive on the market. We want to start growing faster. We want to get more margin, etc., right? So this, I would say, on the board meetings, quarterly, at least once every half of a year, bi-yearly, this is where I would put those decisions in action.
So the higher the spectrum, the less frequent it's going to be. And the lower the spectrum, for example, for one product, might be daily or 10 times per day.
Yes,
But
yes, definitely. The more you zoom out, the least frequently it is, because also, for the big strategy, you need to give it some time to start testing it, right? So for example, you are focusing, your big strategy is to focus on convenience, right? So you want to be the most convenient. You see that people value next day in delivery, that there's a lot of competition. So, deliver free shipment, it can be your angle, you name it, right? Etc. And you will not test it one day, right? So you need to adjust your portfolio also gradually to fit your long-term strategy. So definitely, to get some educated discussion based on data, you need to give it some time. So definitely that will not happen. It's like on the we can, if we want to put it in the framework or in the table, we could say that on the product level idea picture, it's on the minutes/hourly basis. On the portfolio, it can be, daily/weekly basis. On the category, not portfolio, but category, it can be weekly basis. On the portfolio, monthly basis. On the company strategy, quarterly to once every 6 months basis, right? To have the discussion. But also, it doesn't need, for example, and also the more strategic is the decision, the more cautious you can be, right? Because you have the discussion every 6 months, and you can say, okay, we want to be the most convenient. We decided to be the most convenient for 80% of our portfolio. Let's add another 10%. Or we are seeing that the strategy is bringing us benefits, as bringing us profits, which basically mean that we should just continue, right?
so this actually means that the pricing decisions, no matter what the level, impact heavily the overall business and strategy and profitability.
For sure, for sure. That comes directly, it comes back to the beginning of our discussion, which is like profit equals price versus volume minus costs, basically. So definitely, it does influence, but also not to make it so scary. I mean, it's not like you need to change all of it, or you need to act on all of it. When you're starting, you can start with small steps, and if you're already doing a good job, not to just to be more efficient in the long term. Full stop.
So this makes actually pricing decisions, from where it was somebody just deciding on how to change one price from 100 to 99, actually start start showing that it's something more than critical to
Mhm.
business existence. and obviously long-term viability. What I'm trying to say is that many people, usually smaller businesses, think that I'm doing pricing and making pricing decisions when I change the price of product A from 100 to 99. But as it comes out through our conversation, it seems like pricing decision actually something so critical that can impact the longevity of a company in the future.
Yeah.
Of a company.
On the strategy level, for sure, right? That this is like, it's a vital pillar of the business, right? Your business stays on those 4 pillars that we've mentioned. And yes, for sure, of course, like, 199 versus 249 will not influence your business as long as you're not saying one product, right? But most likely, it will not influence your business long term. But not having, a structured pricing approach, definitely, you are having. I'll tell you the story if that's fine. So I was watching some video on the during the weekend, and then the guy was saying, if you don't drink, if you don't breathe, right? For example, you will see that breathe air is critical for your life in like, I don't know, 30 seconds, right? If someone chokes you or you can't breathe, in 30 seconds, you will see that this influences your business, like life, your life, right? Yeah. If you don't drink, you will see that drinking is super important in like hours slash a day, right? If you don't eat, you'll see this in like 5 days, right? Or 6 days that, it's critical for your life. Now, you'll be hungry, but you'll be starving after a couple of days, most likely. I'm not an expert here, but based on the video. And then if you don't train, like, gym, etc., you'll see this in years, right? That, you are not training where you're 20, 30, 40. Then when you're 70, 80, you have some challenges in general, right? It's harder to walk, etc., because you are not doing. And unfortunately, when I saw this video, and I don't want to be this, I hate it, this coach, what my vacations told me about B2B sales, right? Like, I'm not going there, but thinking in terms of this video, I was thinking, damn, it's similar to pricing, right? Sales is like breathing. Of course, if you don't sell, I mean, in e-commerce, you don't have, anything, right? You don't sell, you don't have money, right? Then if your costs are suboptimal, you will see it quite early in the profitability, right? Because you sell and your costs are not in line. And then pricing in this example is like exercising, right? You'll see this in the long term, that if your pricing decisions were only if it's like 179 or 199 rather than what is your model, what should be the price tag, how to cross sell, how to upsell, how to increase LTV through pricing, etc. If you are doing this just anecdotally without any basic strategy, I mean, you will see the impact of it in a bit longer term. What I really don't want to discourage people is that you need to have this big strategy and only then you can, and processes, and then you can only start acting now. It is rather a bottom-up process, and of course, by the book, all this, university books, great books, etc. Nevertheless, they will tell you strategy, operations, execution, right? But the reality frequently is that you just need to start acting and working actively on price tags, very simple things, very simple analysis, and then you see, it works, it's important, I have more profit. Okay, let's think how we can get more out of it. What I'm saying is that frequently, while in principle by the book it's more top-down process, in reality frequently it turns out that it's more bottom-up.
So would you agree that I totally agree with what you said, that the common mistake that people do concerning pricing is that they're afraid to act?
Yes, and they are afraid to act, for me, because it's like this thing that it works, so better don't touch it, right? We somehow did it works, let's just not act on it, right? Because it just works. So and the problem is that many people are just afraid because they don't understand it, right? If you don't understand something, you're afraid of doing doing this. And the same goes to pricing. And totally, when you look at our conversation, when you hear our conversations, this is not rocket science, right? Frequently supply chain, we need to bring one thing from, I don't know, from America to Italy, from Italy to Greece, then you need to ship it to Poland, multiple people, holders, complex things. Pricing, I'm not saying it's easy, but in principle, it's not more complex than other things in your business for some reason. And I do have hypothesis why is that, right? Because it's like and I don't want to go too philosophical here, but like just give me a couple of seconds, is that we just don't like to discuss the price, right? We just don't want to act. It's like a social demographic, social cultural thing, right? We don't discuss the prices, gentlemen. And I don't know if this saying works in English, but in Polish you have this saying that gentlemen don't discuss the price. So we do have that, lords don't talk about the prices, right? We have all the saying in our culture. So negotiations, do you associate negotiations in something pleasant? No, negotiations is nothing pleasant. You need to trade off something for some other thing, which like both of you can be worse off from it also. And negotiations frequently about the price. So I would say that the social cultural aspect make pricing a topic that not many people are into. And I think it's like, and I don't take it that this is like a very conscious decision in multi-level that they've been thinking about it and they decided not to do it. It just somehow happened that this.
So people are reluctant in general to go outside their comfort zone.
For sure, me too. By the way, so we are. When I need to fix something, I don't know, fix my I'm terrible handy, right? If I need to fix my refrigerator or fix something in my home, apartment, flat, I'm super reluctant to do it because I know that I am very, very bad in it, right? So I think this is a very generic truth, right? That you don't just, and business wise somehow pricing is more frequently outside of the comfort zone than other things.
So your advice would be, guys, do something, even small. And after that, start building on that. And the more you get accustomed to that, the more experience you get from that, the more down the hill the whole process becomes.
Baby steps, 100%.
I totally agree with you. Chris, I think we can wrap up our first part for pricing decisions. Thank you very, very much. It has been fantastic talking with you. You give me an analysis and a perspective that I much appreciate. Also, I hope our viewers also like this approach and, give them something to think of, somewhere to start from. And I think in our next series of podcasts, we can talk more in depth of more technical stuff.
Happy to do so, happy to get our hands dirty, so to say, with more technical stuff. We're discussing high level, but I think already some analysis were discussed here. So more than happy to, and yeah, looking forward. Let's discuss pricing more to make it less, how do you say, less terrifying for the mass.
It's not that frightening. Yes. You're right. It's not that frightening. Chris, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and looking forward for the next one.